Hi, everyone. I am Tania Farran. Happy to be back another Monday with you for Parent to Parent. I have an incredible guest to have on today. We really have not dug into special education and the IEP process, so I'm really excited today to be able to dig into that with you today. So before we get to that, let's do a couple of housekeeping items here. So I am the author of Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, a Parent's Manual. It is available on Amazon. In fact, I think it's 50% off right now or something. It is a great resource for you as a parent. You can also check out my YouTube channel that's at the bottom here, ticking across the bottom of the page. Subscribe to that channel. I read excerpts from my book. I talk about the chapters, and then all of these events are also live streamed to it. Also, if you'd like for me to come and talk to a parent group that you have, or your PTO or PTA, I would love to come in and do a book study on Raising the Well-Adjusted Child, a Parent's Manual with them, and we can grow together as parents and add more people to our parenting village. Now, with that taken aside, my guest today is an expert in IEPs, and this topic is called the Collaborative IEP. Whether you know a lot about IEPs or you don't know a lot about IEPs, this meeting, this discussion is going to be perfect for you. So I'm going to introduce to you today William Lane, Dr. William Lane, special education consultant. So welcome, Bill. How are you?
Dr. Farran, I'm doing fine. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us today. He is on like this whirlwind tour of vacationing. So thank you for fitting us into your busy life and your busy schedule for these 30 minutes today. We appreciate you.
Thank you. I appreciate being on.
Yeah. Well, tell everybody just a little bit about who you are in general.
Well, I guess the best way to start is probably in 6th, 7th, 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. I just noticed that I was different and no idea why. Of course, back when I went to school, there were no special ed programs.
Sure.
It was kind of like, okay, you just kind of hang out on your own, or you quit or whatever. So then I went into the service and realized how important an education was. And then I started teaching, working with special needs students, and I really just fell in love with that group of students. And then as I became more and more knowledgeable about students who learn differently, I actually diagnosed myself as being on the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So not only have I lived the experience and know what it's like to have a learning difference, I have the perspective of that. I mean, I kind of know what our weaknesses are, what our strengths are, and taught at the university for 14 years. And then about 5 years ago, I decided to go out on my own and just help parents.
Yeah. Nice. Well, I appreciate that. I'm going to take a second here. Thank everybody who's joined us today. So thanks, Christy Williams, for joining us today. And Felipe Cofino, thank you for being with us today. Great to see you. It's been a little bit. Kenneth Denner, thank you for your support and kindness always. We greatly appreciate that, as well as the Queen, Leslie Flowers. Thanks for being here with us. We appreciate you being here. So thanks so much for joining us. So like I said before, and even in my comments of this event, if you have ever had an IEP or have a child or someone, you've probably had, everyone in the audience probably had someone that their lives have touched that has had an IEP. So for those of you that don't really know what an IEP is, it is often termed and talked about as special education, or an IEP stands for an individualized education plan. Okay. And students in states have to qualify for different reasons. There's different rules and laws in states for why kids qualify for this, but it gives them kind of that maybe extra supports that they may need in specific areas. And so there's a lot to an IEP. Like we could do like there's probably a whole podcast series out there somewhere that's just about IEPs, but we're just going to kind of touch on it a little bit and talk about how Bill, has been able to help people. So, my first question for you is, after being in education for about 30 years, from classroom to giving, lectures, when was that light bulb moment when you decided 5 years ago that made you realize that parents needed that personal advocate in their corner for you to be that person for them?
Probably the look of bewilderment on people's faces they sat across us when we were having their child's IEP meeting.
Mm-hmm.
I think parents tend to view the IEP meeting as scary,
Mm-hmm.
a rush to get finished, and something they'd rather not be at because they're sitting at a table with a bunch of people who have vegetable soup after their name. And they
Yes.
think, I'm not an expert at this. They are. And the one thing that I always tell parents is you are your child's first teacher.
Mm-hmm.
So you know your child better than anybody else. You taught them how to walk. You taught them how to feed themselves, all these kind of things. So, you look at yourself, you know your child better than the school does. So you need to be a collaborative part of that IEP meeting because without your input, and I share like you have a wealth of knowledge about your child, share it with the school.
Mm-hmm.
I always say, be part of the IEP meeting. Don't be afraid.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it is true, and I'm still, those of you that are watching, I'm still a middle school principal. And so I am in these IEP meetings often. And you have a spectrum of parents here. You have parents who are petrified, scared, upset, worried, don't know what this really means for their child, to please, I want more services, more and more and more and more. And, and then you have that middle of the road group that just kind of goes with the flow of, I'm not really sure. Okay, whatever you think. And, like Bill said, they're sitting around a table full of educators, which can be intimidating for them. They feel sometimes like they're the ones that are being told this, or, feel like they're forced to do something sometimes, but they do know their children the best. I love that you said that they're their first teacher and they know their child the best. And so how do we get them and get a parent to move from that feeling of overwhelmed to being empowered, that they know their child the best? How do you do that when you're working with families like this, Bill?
I suggest having taking an advocate with you. The law says that you can bring anybody who has knowledge of your child, and the school district cannot challenge what the word knowledge means. So, you may take his grandmother,
Mm-hmm.
but she may know, but she doesn't know what the school should be doing to correctly help that child,
Mm-hmm.
where an advocate does.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, I can tell you what the school should be doing, or, and I always say, I'm the one that'll take the meanness from the school district and they'll hate me, but they won't take it out on you and your child.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of like, okay, that's why you have an advocate. We know the laws, we know what the school's allowed to do, what they can't do, sending you notice of the IEP meeting, you should have it ahead of time, all those things. And, parents are walking in the meeting, okay, here it is, sign it. No, I want this change. No, you can't write on the IEP. And we've had all these problems that the schools, how do I say this correctly? The schools kind of want to say to the parents, and the parents, like you said, will just sign off because they want to get out of the meeting as quickly as possible.
Right, because they feel kind of uncomfortable about it. So
Right.
I love that. So I want to just 1 second, thank you, Yolanda, for joining us today, as well as Martha. Appreciate you being here and joining us. So as we're talking about the IEP and what does it look like for kids, Dr. Lane is talking about how, bringing an advocate is important. So you can, and Dr. Lane, you probably know more than I do about this. I'm no doubt about it, but you can bring an advocate with you. Where you find your advocate, there's resources probably in your state, community.
Right.
And then you can bring your spouse with you. If you can bring grandma with you if you feel like that. And sometimes having someone just listen also, it's like when you go to the doctor, having someone else listening in, taking some notes while you're receiving it. Because sometimes you get hung up on something they say. Right? Because sometimes the school might say, well, the student isn't performing here, and you're shocked by it as the parent.
And that's tend to what you only dwell on, and you don't hear the rest of the story.
Right. And
so if you have somebody else that can take notes for you.
Exactly. So you don't hear the rest of the story. So you're overwhelmed and you're like, what? So when I've been in meetings with advocates, we do as schools welcome the advocates being a part of the plan. A lot of times we'll leave them for a minute and let them kind of discuss so they fully understand. The advocate will explain to them what part of the process that we're in with the IEP. And it really can help a parent feel empowered. One of the things that I think is important for parents to understand with this, and feel free to elaborate on, they're a member of the team. They're a member of the decision-making process of the IEP. And so our parents have to know that they also are part of that decision. Yes, I want my child to have that. No, I don't want my child to have that. And explaining why. The parent can also call an IEP meeting anytime they want.
As many times as they want also.
As many times as they want. And I think those of you in the audience, listen to that. If you've got friends or people who have, and they're like, oh, well, we had my IEP meeting, but I still don't think it's helping. Call a meeting. Call a meeting. Have another meeting. You are entitled to that. Would you like to elaborate on that at all?
Well, one thing, I mean, they can have as many meetings as they want. It's not just an annual one, and sometimes the parents think, well, it's an annual, we'll just see what happens. Right. And, the longer you wait, the more gap there is in the individual's learning. Two, I recommend bringing the child, if it's appropriate, to the meeting, because then it puts a face with the person that the teachers are dealing with. Okay. I also, if you can't bring a child, I always tell my clients to bring a picture of your child. Okay. And the question I always say to them is, put the picture in front of you and say to the teachers, if this was your child, what kind of education would you want for them? Mm-hmm. And it really puts it in perspective. Like, if this was my child, I don't think I would shortchange there. I would want everything that's possible that's going to be the best for my child. So,
right.
Yes.
Right. That's a great point.
Yeah. And even in the law, when it lists who the members of the IEP team are, parents are listed as the first thing. Mm-hmm. So it's not like, okay, we're an add-on or we were just thought about later. In the law, when the legislators wrote it, they wrote the parents as the first person who should be at the IEP meeting.
Yeah. So and it's huge. And you'd be surprised at the number of parents that don't come to them. Right.
Yes.
And sometimes they don't come. We have to make those decisions for them. We give them 2 attempts. And if they still don't come or reach out or reschedule, then we have that meeting without them, which is, we have to make the decisions in the best interest of the child,
but still
that leaves the parent out of that being a part of a team. So that's something that's super important for them to know, that they are part of a team and making decisions for their children. And I agree, is when children start to become school aged, they should be a part of their planning, their goals that are being set for them, what's happening in the classroom, things like that. Another thing with that, setting meetings, like if we're trying something new, I'll a lot of times tell a parent, let's try this for 6 weeks and get back together. Right. And we'll set the next meeting right away. We'll try it for 6 weeks and see if it's working. If it's not working, we'll try something different. And so, you can do things like that as well. Not everything has to be just set and dry. And then you brought up another thing, like, don't wait.
Right.
So if something is, kind of in, a thorn in your side, or you're noticing your child not growing or not thriving from this IEP and the goals, don't wait until the meeting and then come guns a-loaded. You know what I mean? Start having the conversation, ask for a meeting earlier, and share some of those concerns early. You don't have to rewrite the whole document. Sometimes sharing a concern can be the slight changes of things, with kids, and making just a few amendments to it.
And I talked about, bringing the student with you, because you can look at the report card and will say he's doing really well in Mrs. Jones's class. So you can say to the student, what's Mrs. Jones doing that you like? Mm-hmm. All right, well, if she's doing this, can the other teachers do the same thing? And that may be the turning point of helping the student learn, because they know what works for them. If the student's not there, they can't share what's working or not working.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Right. And I think what Dr. Lane's trying to say is not necessarily what you like her doing, but what is she doing that's effective for you in learning? So like if she's providing notes to the student and they're learning, oh, maybe the other teachers can provide notes for you, or they moved your desk to this area of the room, or you have a partner for this.
Right.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
maybe we can implement some of those things in other classes for you. So absolutely, those are just great things. So thank you again for more people joining us today. Appreciate you. Coach Carrie agreed the parents and guardians should be present and the child of a certain age should be present as well. Thank you for sharing that, Coach Carrie. She'll be on in maybe next week, I think it is. So you'll be excited. I'll be excited to talk to her as well. And thank you, Felipe, for adding this comment. I've witnessed IEPs where the teacher, counselor, and parents are all sharing examples of what they need, but on paper, they might be doing okay enough, and they don't put them on that IEP. Right.
And that's called the wait and see attitude, and that does not work. If you hear that as a parent, well, let's just wait and see what happens to your child. The longer you wait, the more the gap grows. So when you hear the term wait and see, it's almost like, no, we need to start.
Right. And so what Dr. Lane is also sharing, that gap that you're getting is that where they're able to learn for a period of time, and now they're not learning anymore. If we wait too long, that gap gets really big. So instead of just missing 2 months of 6th grade learning, maybe they miss an entire year. So it looks like Dr. Lane, like I said, is traveling. So it looks like we might have kind of got him stuck. We'll wait for him to come back here in a minute. If you can hear me, Dr. Lane, I
got you now. Yes, you're back.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Good. All right. Leslie says, when you try it for 4 to 6 weeks, it then becomes integrated into their behavior. There's not as much pushback. Smart strategy. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't work. I'll be honest with you. Sometimes things that we try are successful and sometimes they're not. And we have to go back to the drawing board. And that is with goals and stuff. You pick things that you think they're going to help them grow and be successful with. Let's see if there's anything else. There are legalities, data collection, and psychological or medical diagnosis. Felipe, I guess you asked a question. There's a variety. Yes, there's a variety of reasons and why and how kids can be qualified for special education. Do you want to tap into some of those, Dr. Lane?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's fine. I think she listed them very well. I mean, and I think that based on the student, which of those would work is probably the best idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Leslie. That is true. Also, when we bring kids to these IEP meetings, the title of this is Collaborative IEP. When we bring kids together for these IEPs, they are learning how to communicate, be a part of a meeting, advocate for themselves, learn how to interact and communicate with staff and teachers. And so I think that's really important also, to have them with us. So I love that. And Coach Carrie, you are correct. So there are multi-tier interventions that schools have in order to help support kids before they get on an IEP. So it's kind of part of that wait and see that Dr. Lane is talking about, but we're giving them some supports to see if just the few supports we can give them in school closes the gap enough for them that they don't have to go on the IEP. A lot of people think, and Dr. Lane and I were talking about this in the back, a lot of people think if I put my kids on an IEP that reduces their workload. And actually it doesn't. It used to in the old days, if I had a student who had ELA or language arts or English or reading, whatever we called it at the time, goals, they didn't come to my reading class. They went to to their IEP teacher, their special education teacher class. And that's where they received reading. Well, now it has changed. They stay in my class for reading. And they also go to that class for reading. So they actually get additional work because they're going to see reading at a grade level. So say I'm a 7th grade teacher, they're going to see reading at the 7th grade level, and then they're going to go and receive some instruction with the same standards, maybe at the 5th grade level that they're working on, or supports in what the 7th grade is teaching. So they're actually getting a lot of extra work and support. It's a lot for these kids to do. And so really making sure that we just don't want to plop every kid into that situation. We want to make sure that they're qualified for it, that they're coming to classes. There's so many factors that go into making those decisions. Thank you, Annie, for joining us. We appreciate you being here. Gregory, thanks for being here. I love this, Gregory. And Dr. Lane, can you talk about this? How long do IEPs last with kids? So he's saying he was on an IEP from kindergarten to grade 11, and when he was in 12th grade, the IEP vanished.
That's a good thing. I mean, that's what you want. You want the student to be able to come off the IEP. And I mean, it's hard work, but it can happen. I mean, there's a perfect example of it that it does happen. It's not like a life sentence that they're always going to be on an IEP. They're always going to need support. Sometimes just a few.
Yeah. And that's a perfect point, because it is true. We don't want to leave kids on these IEPs forever and ever and ever. Our goal is to give them the supports that they need so that they're caught up to speed, and we move them back out of it and in their least restrictive environment, right? So we can continue to start pulling away supports for them as they are learning and growing and making gains. And that's always celebration for families, to celebrate them,
yes,
their students coming off of having an IEP, which, while it can be scary, our kids do have to learn to swim sometimes. Now, also, kids can stay in school till they're 21. Their IEP can follow them to college. They can receive supports in college and things like that with their IEPs. I'm not sure really what they're called in college, to be honest with you, but they can receive some supports and services. So, all right. So the next thing I want to talk about is, again, we've talked about a lot of jargon so far that we've been here together talking about these IEPs. So what is something that, what do you think are some important terms for people to understand before they sign an IEP? Like, before they say yes, or before they get into it, what do they need to know?
I would say that one of the first ones would be FAPE, free appropriate public education. Okay, so that it's free to the student, it's appropriate for what the student needs, it's appropriate to the unique needs of every student. So they just can't pull it off the shopping menu and say, okay, we're going to give your child this one. It has to meet whatever the child's unique needs are. Okay, public, it's at the public school if possible, and then it's an education. And I think, I just dealt with a client who actually needed a device for their student, and the school district made them buy the $300 assistive technology device. And I'm like, wait a minute, we need to talk about this. This doesn't work. And I think another one is what we talked about in the beginning. The IEP and individualized education program, because it is a program, and it's going to follow the student for as long as they need it. And it's, like I said, it's unique to the student. It's programmed for the student's unique needs, and I think that's least restrictive environment. You talked about that. It's like, if the student only has a minor issue, they don't need to be put in a special class away from their classmates. They should be kept at the appropriate level, as appropriate to the level that they're working at with their peers.
Yeah, those are some really, really important terms. I'm glad that you brought those up. So thank goodness this is recorded. You guys can always go back and check those back out again and see what they are. Coach Carrie, thank you for bringing this to my attention. College isn't under IDEA. It probably is under ADA. So that is probably very, very true with that. I know that when my daughter, she never had an IEP, but she does have epilepsy. And so she had a health plan. She didn't really have even a 504 plan, but college was able to give her extended time, things like that. Most of them are very willing to work for you. Sorry, I'm covering your face up there, Dr. Lane.
Oh, that's okay.
But if I was on the IEP in my 12th grade, those supports could have transferred when I was in college, which I learned weeks after graduating. I didn't know that there were supports for people. Yes, so there are supports for people. Yes, absolutely. So thank you, Gregory. This is why this show is so important for people to understand and learn about IEPs. And again, this is tip of the iceberg, like very, very small things. I want to go into something too for parents. Like, it's really hard to hear the news that your child might need some additional supports, or we're seeing some things with your kids that, we're noticing they're having some struggles in the classroom. And those are hard conversations to have with parents. How do you help your parents understand when a teacher comes with 30 years of experience and is telling their beautiful, precious child, we're seeing behaviors in the classroom. We're seeing that they can't read. We're seeing that they're having a temper tantrum. We're seeing whatever the case may be. How do you handle those conversations with parents?
I think the parents have to understand that the school is trying to help the child, and it's not anything against the parents. It's, we're coming to you. We know your child has strengths, but they also have weaknesses. We see these weaknesses in your child. Okay. We're not going to forget about the strengths, because we don't ever want the students to lose their strengths, to go down, but we're going to work on their weaknesses to kind of bring them up to a balance of where they should be. Mm-hmm. And it's additional support. It's free. And, we need to take it to work on it. We need to work collaboratively with the school. Like, okay, if the school's doing this, we're going to do the same thing at home. And that's why attending the IEP meeting, understanding the IEP, is very helpful. Because if you're doing one thing at home and the school is doing something different, the student becomes very easily confused because they don't know which one they're supposed to be following. So I just tell them it's additional support. It's helpful for your child. Your child needs it. Don't take offense against it. It's not bad parenting. It's just something that the school is helping you correct.
Right. And the thing that I really want to stress, and I put this, there's a chapter in my book called Partnering in Education or something like that, because I feel like that partnership is so important. And I really haven't talked about this on this show much, but supporting academics, that's the name of this chapter, because, and education partnerships, we want to be partners with the schools. Johnny, Susie, Sally, whoever the child is, they're the most important person. So like Dr. Lane said, bring the picture of the child. But that's who we're all talking about. That's what this whole meeting is for, is this child. So what can we all do together to work together? And there are times when schools have seen things in kids. They'll identify things in kids that parents don't see. Parents sometimes have a hard time with that information, but please know that the school is identifying that to help the child in the long run. Like if we can get this captured in second grade and work on speech or language or something like that, then we can capture this and we can work on it and give them strategies and skills for them to be able to carry through all the way through college and the workplace, to be able to help support them. And I know that's hard sometimes for parents because they feel like there's something wrong with my child.
Yeah, right. Yes.
But most schools now have individual plans for everybody, whether you're on an IEP or you're in an intervention or you're in a gifted program. Our kids are all going different ways all of the time. And I try to explain that to parents. They're like, I don't want my kid labeled or, put in that. But we all schools are really trying to give all of the kids what they need.
Mm-hmm. And I think if I remember correctly, it was Gregory that had an IEP from second grade to 11th grade, but he eventually came off of it.
Mm-hmm.
Think of if he hadn't come off of it, or if they hadn't even put him on one, where he would, possibly be now without all that help and additional support that he received in school. Gregory, thank you for adding that. I appreciate it. That was a good talking point for me. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So thank you. Yes. Could have graduated with a BA. Yeah. Right. Things that we learn. Thank you, Josette, for joining us today. So, my gosh, 30 minutes flies by. It flies by. And we didn't even get to all of our talking points that we wanted to talk about with IEP. So, if you have some questions or comments, you guys have done a great job. Thank you for your support today.
Thank you. Yes.
Drop it in here. We can come back and ask them. We'll have Dr. Lane back another time. We'll continue talking more about this. We didn't even get to talk about your book or anything like that at this time. So, we'll get back into it again in the next quarter or so, and we can continue this conversation about IEPs. So those of you in the audience that have friends with children, family members with children on an IEP, share this episode with them. It's 30 minutes long. Pop them in their ears, go for their walk, listen to it. And then you'll have Dr. Lane's contact if you want to reach out to someone and have any additional questions or things like that. So, Dr. Lane, what is your last right now? Your I don't know, the final message to someone today that's maybe feeling lost in this process? What's it? Something that they can aim for this week?
I guess my closing thought would be that the school knows the student, the parent knows the child.
Oh, I like that.
So, and it's like explained to my clients, it's like, okay, in most classrooms, the setup, the teacher gets a list of who their students are. They make placards, they make name tags for the seat, and they set the student there. And that's the first time they've met that student, whether it's first grade, ninth grade, whatever. And that's all they know about the student is right now their name. Parents by the second grade have already known their child for 6, 7 years. And they have that wealth of knowledge that I talked about before. And it's like, the school knows the student, the parent knows the child.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. So if you'll stick around for 1 minute afterwards, everyone, I'm going to go ahead and end this stream today. Thank you for joining us. I'm not here next Monday or the next Monday. I'm on vacation.
Good for you.
On vacation. And then I'll be back and I'll do a couple more shows, and I'll take a little summer break and get us started and with all of our guests for the next quarter. So we've got lots of shows for you coming soon. Thanks everyone for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Lane, for being here. Everyone have a great rest of your night. Bye now.